So you know that this is LeDavid Hashem Ori V'Yishi. We do it. I haven't heard the shofar yet, so somebody will blow today, and so we will all hear it. I have more trouble now with false teeth to blow the shofar than I had before. I can still get something out of it, but it's not the same. So if there's a good shofar blower, and I think Bahir will do fine for us. This is it's a nice shofar here. And so we do LeDavid Hashem Ori V'Yishi. And if we have time, maybe I'd like to go and go through that psalm, because we're going to be saying it to Hoshana Rabbah. But I first want to go into that other Inyan. So, let's sing a niggin first, and this niggin goes to the words Lecha Amar Libi.
I always have trouble with that. I cannot figure out how to translate that line.
Libi Amar, Lecha Bakshu Panai.
But Bakshu, to whom?
Huh?
And who's Panai? Who's talking?
Panim is plural.
Yeah, I know, but it's like God is saying.
No. Lecha, the person, David says, to you my heart is saying. So the sentence is what Rashi would call Mikra Mesuras.
Well, yeah.
Turn it around. So
that's not my problem. It's the Bakshu Panai. Who's talking to whom?
God, a human being is talking to God and says, my ponim is plural, my many ponims, as it were, are seeking you. Okay. And then goes at Panecha Hashem Avakesh.
Yeah, that
right?
Part's easy to understand.
Yeah.
It's just those two words.
So that's
I couldn't figure out who was saying it to whom.
Okay, it's like Mi Amar El Mi, as the Hebrew teacher always asks the question in Cheder.
Thank you.
Lecha Amar Libi Bakshu Panai Et Panecha Hashem Avakesh Lecha Amar Libi Bakshu Panai Et Panecha Hashem Avakesh Al tastir Panecha mimeni al tat Beyaf avdecha Al tastir Panecha mimeni al tat Beyaf avdecha Ay Ezra vati ayita Ezrati ayita al titsheni al ta'azveni Elokei ishi Ay Ezra vati ayita Ezrati hayita al titsheni al ta'azveni Eloike v'yishi. Yeah, this is a niggin that really deserves to be sung good, and let's see.
Is there a recording of that somewhere, Rabbi Zalman?
Pardon?
Is there a recording of that?
Of that niggin, someplace, I think, yeah.
You don't know where?
No, something isn't the way it should be here. So, hold isn't on. Let's try it again. All right. Here we go. There is a general klal that the rabbis have said, and it goes on the issue of what is the meaning of Vayihi against the meaning of Vahaya. So, for instance, Vayihi bimei Achashverosh. So they say, Oi, Tzoris. Real Tzoris. You'll have to ask the cat to give you space. So, and that's why you say, Vayihi is Vai, woe unto us. On the other hand, Vahaya is always considered to be like the future, the good. So how come that the Tochacha begins V'haya im lo tishme'u li? That there is something good for not being obedient to God. And I have looked among the Farshim and didn't find anyone who picked up on that. And, huh?
Yeah, that is interesting. It's actually...
You'd expect, you know, that Vayhi im lo tishme'u, you know, then we would have said, yes, tzoris, you know. But when it says V'haya, I understand that, you know, from a plain pshat level, it makes sense. It's a conditional. Should you not, then this would happen, right? But nevertheless, there is a hint in there that in the disobedience, in our disobedience, something happens that God wants.
It's parallel to the Vahaya im Shamoa.
There it is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It means parallel.
Yeah.
We're exercising our freedom of choice, which is the core of our humanity, and God wants that.
That's true. But what's the goodness that'll come out of as a result of that? And that's always the issue, to be able to say, when, for instance, somebody says felix culpa, which is happy guilt, happy sin, you know. What does it mean to set up the Garden of Eden into such a situation that it should create that problem?
Maybe it has to do with a person who does tshuva is on a higher level than someone who was never tempted.
And this is correct. This is where the story comes in with Reb Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev meeting this guy in the street, and who is known to everybody to be a big balavera, and saying to him, "I envy you." And he says, "How come that you would bother to envy me?" And he says, "Because if you will do tshuva, you know, then I know that all your averas are going to turn into mitzvahs. Oh, will you have many, many mitzvahs, okay?" And that is the issue of why is it that if a person does tshuva out of yira, it says, Zedonotav nasin lo ke shgagot. Although he has done it intentionally, it's accounted as if it was an unintentional sin. Okay? Why? Because if I have charote, and I say, had I known, you know, the consequences of that, I wouldn't have done it. So I pull out my intention from there. What is left is, yes, there is a sin, and if the intention isn't there anymore, and now we have to deal with a kapara. In some place I wrote about this business of Aaron HaKohen, that, you know, that for an avera that you do b'mezit, you can't bring a korban. Only for averas you do b'shoigig. Chatos, Osham, all these come. For averas you do b'shoigig. So a guy comes to Aaron HaKohen and says to Aaron HaKohen, "Oi, have I sinned? And give me a tshuva. What do I have to do?" So Aaron asks him the question, "Did you do it intentionally, unintentionally?" The guy says, "Never have done it intentionally." He says, "Is that so? You know what it means to do it b'mezit? Mechavein, you know, that here is Yodea et Ribono, or Mechavein limrod bo. You understand God, and you intend to rebel against him. He says, are you sure that you really, Yodea et Ribono? What a hasaga do you have? And so before long he is through with him, and he convinces him that's really Beshogeg. So he says, no, if it's Beshogeg, I can bring a korban, I can take care of you, okay? I think there is such a deep meaning of that in relation to counseling and to dealing with guilt, to point out that very often the person who has done an avera has done the avera, how would I say it, like a mumar leteavon, you know? He has he likes pork, for instance, and so he eats that. But he is not doing b'mezid to be a mumar lahachis, to anger God with that. Okay?
Muma is like being converted to.
Yeah, it means that, but it means being against morid b'malchut, you know, morid b'malchut. And so it has a sense of a mumar, someone who is against. So now, so it means that he has become, how would I say the word? In German, is abtrünnig. He went the wrong way. That's what mumar stands for. Then it goes into that he changed his religion. Hey mire dato is also how mumar gets used. But then they say there's a mumar lahachis and a mumar leteavon. And most people, if you check out, are mumarim leteavon. They're overcome by the lust. They're overcome by the thing, but it's not that they want to anger God. Okay? So that's the issue that goes with doing tshuva. But if you do tshuva me'ahava, then it says that zedonotav nasin lo kezachuyot. These averas become mitzvahs. So the question is, how come that the avera should become a mitzvah? It smells as if a skunk did its thing.
Yeah.
All right.
Now we turn the avera into a mitzvah?
Yeah. So we have to turn this into a good smell, you know? It smells like super sensimilla. Okay.
Better than cigarettes.
Huh?
It's better than smelling like cigarettes.
Anyway, so what happens when he changes the thing out of ahava? So you say, now he says, God, I love you so much. I'm sorry for what I've done. I want to do tshuva for that. But I do it not because I'm afraid of the punishment, but because I love you. So I once heard this pshat, and it goes like this. The person who is a sinner, b'shogeg, on Sunday you might hear it from me again. The person who is a sinner, b'shogeg, hi. All right, so you'll have to make room a little bit over here. And we'll need another copy or two, yeah. So if he does it b'shogeg, you have a sense that, no. If he does it tshuva out of Europe, okay, I'll wait for a moment so that you can get settled and be here. Doing the tshuva out of Europe, he is still very much concerned for himself. He's saying, if I'd have known that this would cost me such punishment, you know, I wouldn't have done it. Because Yirat HaOnesh comes in there, you know, he's afraid. But what does it mean a person does the tshuva ma'ahava? He's saying to the Rebbeinu Shalom, if it is necessary that you need to make a example of me, of what happens to somebody who has sinned, I so love you that for the sake of your purpose, I'm willing to be an example if you want to punish me this way. Just a second. So it gets to the place where David HaMelech is saying, Alamda poshim derachecha v'chatayim elecha yashuvu. I am prepared to do whatever I can to make sure that people are not going to sin. I will do this kind of tshuva not only for myself, but also for other people. And if you have to make an example of me, I accept that. Then you say, oh, if so, then you make a mitzvah out of that, you see. Then you have taken and created a mitzvah, and that's why it works tshuva me'ahava. You were going to say something.
Just a question, does it matter if I do a tshuva from ahava? Does it matter if I do my tshuva from ahava or not, in terms of the brownie points I'm going to get?
No, if you think of brownie points, then you're not doing it me'ahava, you know?
Yes.
Then it's a davar, what do they say? You know, ava tluya b'davar, you know?
It's conditional love.
Right? Isn't gonna stay. I need one more. Thank you. So,
Guess what I'm asking? Does the intent matter?
yes. It does matter a great deal, because what kind of tshuva is it? You know? I'll give you an example. There's one of the stories is about a man who the Gemara says that if anybody says echte v'ashuv, let me sin, and later on I'll do tshuva. Ein maspikim biyado lasot tshuva. You don't give him a chance to do tshuva, which is the way you're going to be up the creek without a paddle. You know, it's not going to be that way. You are not going to get a chance to do tshuva. So there's a story about a Rebbe, and I'm sorry I never heard the name of the Rebbe, so I can't tell it to you. I heard it from a Rav Kahana, and that I can say, but he was saying in the name of the Rebbe, that this man came to him and said, Rebbe, I'm an echte ve'oshevnik. I said that I want to sin and I'm going to do tshuva later on, and now I really want to do tshuva. I'm not doing it just because, you know, I made up my mind I'll just wash it off. I see how wrong I was, and I really want to do tshuva. But the Gemara says that ein maspikim biyado lasas tshuva. What am I going to do? So he says, if you're really sincere, ein maspikin, we have no safek that biyado lasas tshuva, that he can do tshuva. Okay? So you see that ein lecha davar ha'omed b'fnei tshuva. There's the old kasha that is being asked about why is it that when Elisha ben Avuya heard Shuvu banim shovavim chutz me'acher, it says Yatza letarbut ra'ah. So they said, couldn't he have helped himself at that point? So they give the answer, yes, he could have. If he had seichel, he could have. Why? Because kol ma she'omer lecha balabayit aseh chutz mitzeh. Chutz mitzeh. If the balabayis says go, you know, he ceases to be a balabayis for you. So you have to do what the balabayis tells you, except when he tells you go, leave me. I don't want to have anything to do. So if Elisha ben Avuya would have zachain gespart, you know, would have been stubborn, would have said, never mind, you say chutz mitzeh, but I'm still going to go, you know, I'm still going to do tshuva. It would have helped him, okay? So that's how they deal with this issue. Now I want to go and move to another thing, so let me just stop this. And go to the next part, because I think that's the one that I want to pay attention to. But, huh?
Can I back you up for 1 second?
Go ahead.
You say that tshuva out of ahava turns into mitzvah, but tshuva out of yira doesn't.
Tshuva out of yira only lifts the thing from mazid into shogeg. That's all.
Okay.
Because you see, the issue of the karma remains. but the karma gets transformed in tshuva out of ava, whereas in tshuva out of yir, the karma doesn't get transformed. There still has to be reckoned with. These are the damages that were done, okay? All right. All right.
So in Elul, we're in Ahava, but when Yom Kippur comes, we're already in Yira.
No, Yom Kippur, that's a whole other thing. You're rushing me,
Sorry.
okay? So let me just begin with the topic that I want to bring out today. Most of the time when you read anything having to do with Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, on the sources that go from Pshat, you're going to find that they will talk about the shofar, they're going to talk about tshuva, they're going to do about things having to do with the davening, and so on and so forth. But why is it that you should begin with saying Hayom, this day, yeah? Ze Hayom, Tchilat Maasecha Zikaron Liyom Rishon. So they asked the question, on the first day, what the creation was of light, and that's not what we are remembering, because they tell you that Bechav Hei Be'elul Nivra HaOlam, and that the sixth day of creation was the day when Adam was created. So then that's the Yom Rishon. So what is that about? So I'm going to go back a little bit to Pshat here, okay? That if you say Yom Echad, Yom Sheni, Yom Shlishi, Yom Revi, Yom Chamishi, finally Yom Ha-Shishi. So, and it says Be-Reshit, not Ba-Reshit. So it's not a definite article. It's once upon a beginning, there was one day, and there was after that Yehi Or happened, there was a second day of Yehi Rakia, and when that finished, there was a third day of Yikavu Hamayim, and so on and so forth. So you can always say it's not ordinal, a cardinal ordinal, I forgot the difference here. But when it gets to the sixth day, that's the one for real. So they say that's Liyom Rishon. Why do we say on Friday, Adonai Malach Geud Lavesh? So the answer is being given by Chachamim is to say that Adam, after Vayipach Be'apav Nishmat Chaim, is very astonished, looking around at the whole world and recognizing right away the Creator there. And so he's saying, wow, Adonai Malach Geud Lavesh, etc., okay? And that's the reason why the Leviim were singing that on Friday. So from that you get back to Hayom Harat Olam and so on and so forth. From a modern perspective of cosmology, when people are talking about the anthropic principle, it goes back to a posik, Anochi asiti eretz ve'adam aleha barati. I created earth, and a human being upon it did I create. And so the Chachamim right away come and say, Barati is the gematria of Taryag. I created a human being so that he should keep the 613 mitzvahs. So you get a sense that the posik tells us what the anthropic principle is saying at the same time, namely that there was a divine intention that all those impossibilities should be so aligned that the one tiny chance that there should be human consciousness should come out of that, all that thing that could have happened in creation. So you get a sense that to be able to say Ze Hayom Tchilat Maasecha Zikaron LeYom Rishon, and then you get to say what's Yom Rishon, because Yom Rishon doesn't say Yom Rishon, it says Yom Echad, right? Mm-hmm. So what's the Yom Rishon? So they all say, the Mekubalim say, that this deals with Adam Kadmon. the first notion that arises in God, that there should be a human being capable of awareness and of will, because angels are seen, they have awareness but no will. Okay, it's almost like the angels are like the Borg,
Like robots?
huh?
Borg.
The Borg from
Star
He's
Trek.
like
Star Trek.
Yeah, they're programmed, and it says that ein malach ose shtei shlichot, and a malach, when he gets to do his job, after he's fulfilled the job, he's gone. In other words, malach is a function that has to play itself out, and when it's done, it's done. Different than a malach is a human being who was given a will of his own. So now Reb Shneor Zalman goes and tells us something. When can you say that somebody becomes a king? I think we talked a little bit about that last week. Over animals, you can't be a king, and over your own children, you can't be a king. You can only be a king over people who are willing to say, Heye lanu lekatzin, you be our melech, and are willing to be machtir, to give you the crown, and to say, we will follow you wherever you will take us. So it's necessary that there should be that space assigned to human beings with will, that is in their option to be able to malchuto beratzon kiblu aleim, etc. Okay, so that's one part of Rosh Hashanah, and blowing of the shofar is another way of saying, as we hear the shofar, we accept upon ourselves malchut shamayim in this way. Good. Having said something about malchut, then comes another issue. Vayivra Elokim et ha'adam. It says, God created Adam, Zachar u'nekeva bara'otam. He created them male and female. And then what happened? And so there are two possibilities. One, the story of Lilith, that they were back to back and they were sawn apart. And that's why the spine gives us the saw marks in the back. That's how they talk about that. And the other one is that Chava is made out of the bone, the rib. So what's interesting here is that Vayipal Hashem tardema al ha'adam, and God casts a deep sleep. In other words, he gives him anesthesia, and then he takes that rib and puts vayiskor basar and the flesh and so on. It is so amazing to me that where we are today with the issue of cloning and stem cells and so on and so forth, that right then and there you have that thing, that he takes. Because then he says, "Etzem atzamai, basar mipsari," it's me now in a female form, and that's such an amazing thing to be able to see that. Yeah. In every family, if you have more than 3-4 children, there are different siblings that have how would I say, bonds. My sister, she's younger than I, but she's the oldest sister, Dvorah. She and I have a bond. My brother and the other sister, Dvorah, Ada Alei Shalom, they had their bond together. And sometimes people would say, looking at Dvorah, and they would say, here is Zalman as a female, okay? And the other way around, saying, this is Dvorah with a beard. Okay, and so you get the sense of that etzem natzamai and basar mipsari. So good. So that's on this plane. But when you go to a higher plane, you start asking, what's going on? So there is an element in which we are being put under a trance. the Tardema falls on us. When we wake up from the Tardema,
If we wake up.
well, in this case, we're going back to Adam Arishan, yeah? Waking up from the Tardema, we are now in this kind of polarity, duality that we didn't have before. So, and it says, Vayiven et hatzela. Vayiven, he built. So the Chachamim say, Bina yetera nitna be'isha yoter me be'ish. More understanding is put. Vayiven, he made her smart, you know? Mm-hmm. He made her discerning. And so, therefore, there is something that is given to Bina yetera nitna be'isha yoter me be'ish. When you spell out the work of Bina against the work of Chochmah, if you've seen on my car, I've done what's on the tefillin. On the right side of the car, I have a shin with 3, and on the left, a shin with 4. The shin with 3 stands for Chochmah, and the shin with 4 stands for Bina. How so? Because when you want to say something unitive, you always talk about 3. Tripod, you know, you take away 1 foot, it falls down. The world stands on 3 things, Shlosha Dvarim, you know, and there's always, the 3Z is the way Chochmah operates. So you say triune, you know, if I want to say from these 3 becomes a 1, okay? When I go the other way with 4, I say, first of all, there's 1 and then there's the other. But even the 1 can be cut into 2. It's a double dichotomy. So you have, for instance, they like to use Aristotle here and speak about kar, cham, lach, yavesh. 2 dichotomies. So then out of these 2 dichotomies you can get cham ve'yavesh, cham ve'lach, kar ve'yavesh, and kar ve'lach, which then comes up to yin-yang, old yin, young yin, you know, get the whole business that's involved in there, that you have the 4Zs and the elements, and always you break things into 4. So Bina Yetera Nitna Be'isha Yoter Mi Be'ish is to say, how are we going to do that? Okay. Now, when you say about the 3Zs, it stands on 3 things, you are not talking about time. But when you go into Bina Yetera Nitna Be'isha, then you bring in the issue of time. And time takes time. So a papa can become in one moment a papa. Vater werden ist nicht schwer, Vater sein, dagegen sehr, right? But mother is even longer. Mother takes a lot of time. Okay. So the issue is, how does Shchine get built there? Because if the Shchine would not be built up, as it were, in heaven, we wouldn't have a world. You know, we wouldn't have time. Time would disappear. So we need to have Shchine to give us time. Reb Nachman has this beautiful story in the 7 beggars. On the 3rd day, he describes the heart and the spring. The heart yearns for the spring yearns for the heart, and their longing is very great. And there's a man of good deeds who collects sparks of good deeds all over the world, and these sparks give him time, and so he gives it to the heart, and the heart can give it to the spring, and so time can continue, okay? Now, this means that the issue of time depends on Shchina, the indwellingness of that. However, Shchina always is subject to damage, subject to galut. So you speak of Shchinta begaluta. The greatest galut that there can be is when I am being forced to do something against my will. can you imagine the galut of a person who knows that he is digging a ditch and they're going to shoot him afterwards and put him into that ditch? You know, and he has to go and do the digging of the ditch. So when the Chachamim tell us what was so wrong with what the Egyptians did to us, it said they made us work befarech. What is befarech? Avodah mefarechet gufa shel adam. It is a kind of work that destroys the body. It's so against, why should I be doing this? And yet I'm forced to do it. So you get the sense of how the galut is. And I think of chain gang people being in such a situation, Cool Hand Luke, yeah, is such a situation of being in galut at this point. So when a year is gone, it sort of, the Shechina has become so injured, and he uses the phrase, V'hu mecholel b'psha'enu, and he has been pierced through our sins, so that the juice, as it were, the divine juice, has seeped out, because it can't be a container anymore. So the issue of Malchut is what gives place for the Shechina. But the Shechina can't be imposed on us. You know, so we have to have that thing every year that we are Umalchuto beratzon kibla aleim, that we do this and we say Hamelech and all that stuff in order to create that space. So that's as far as tradition has taken us with this, to say that once we make that kind of space on Rosh Hashanah, Hayom Harat Olam, you know, the world is pregnant with that. On Yom Kippur is the birthing of the new name, and it has to come down in 4 phases, the 4 days between Yom Kippur and Sukkot, and then the first day of Sukkot is Rishon Lecheshbon Avonot. Okay, so this year, you know, it's so hard. If I were to be asked, what kind of a drosha do I want to make for this Rosh Hashanah, for this Yom Kippur? I'd want to say that it is essential that we should all be able to access invisible support, means for invisible support. That what's going to come in this coming year is not going to be fun. We have already experienced in this past year difficulties, and it's going to be very important to be kind to each other, to support each other, to create a support system, and to also create a situation where whenever we can have a little bit of a celebration of doing something positive and doing something good, that we should do that. So a great deal of emphasis this year has to go on Sukkot and Simchas Torah, Shmini Atzeres, to really start building up, how do I get Simcha in the difficult places, okay? There used to be a Yiddish song on the word, you know, there's a Zmiris that begins, Menucha v'Simcha or la Yehudim. So you hear some people never in the ghetto singing, Oy vunemen menucha, oy vunemen simcha. Where can we find menucha? Where can we find simcha? There should be or la Yehudim. So it's going to be really important to create opportunities when we celebrate with each other, when we console each other, when we help each other. And that's going to be an important thing for this coming year. Now, in order to be able to do that the right way, we can't only do it for Jews. This morning was so interesting listening to the radio and what was it called? A Colorado thing, you know?
Colorado Matters.
Colorado Matters, where I was talking about how the Muslims are trying to create a situation, how more people become Muslims and so on. So it's when you hear also the siege mentality under which they are in America. You know, after 9/11, being a Muslim and going out in the street, even with the begadim of the Muslims, takes a certain kind of courage to do that. So then you get a sense where we were, you know, and there's a certain rachmonis that is necessary. So the place that we built, the malchut, has to be made so that we don't have separate malchuts going on. And I don't know yet how to do it with the people in Colorado Springs. But I think, and I think you heard me say this before, their questions are good questions. Their answers are not. So if we were to say with them, we share with you the questions. And that's the field in which we need divine help. Because society is falling apart, it's getting worse, and so on and so forth. And you're concerned, and we are concerned. You are praying about it, we are praying about it. Can we understand that we are all, in some way, partners in this thing? So to create the Binyan HaMalchut, which is a field of consciousness and energy, both consciousness and energy. Energy is like, take a look at the surge in energy that's happened to Islam. It's not being applied the best way, you know, but you take a look at that upsurge of energy that was happening there. And the energy is not accompanied by the right kind of consciousness at this point, but the energy is nevertheless there. And so you have to deal with that. So on the other hand, if I look at the consciousness of the people on the left, I find they have good consciousness, but there's hardly any energy there. You know, it is so schwach. When I think of the people who would like to have regime change in America, and how inept they are, and how they quibble about details that are so unimportant, you know, because they're into ideology. Whereas the people on the right have said, the hell with ideology, we want power. So the inyan of Binyan HaMalchut is to create the awareness and to create the power possibility. So how do we do that? So here is where I feel a certain kind of sadness. Comes Rosh Hashanah, the people who come to us, many of them don't show up a whole year. So what do? We lower the threshold. We make it happy for them, you know, we'll dance around the aisles, we'll give them encouraging sermons and all that kind of stuff. But what will happen to Uvechein Teim Pachto Hashem Elokeinu Al Kol Masecho V'Sim Lo Yichatohu Hashem Elokeinu Levadecho and V'Hofa B'Hadar Ge'onu Zech Al Kol Yoshvei Tevel Artzecho. These kinds of prayers will not get the emphasis that they need to get in this situation. And that's why I feel that whatever we can to create a time and say to the people, here's the liturgy. It doesn't necessarily give you the words that you need to have. Although I tried, you know, in the translations that I did of Malchias, Zechonos, and Shofras, it's much easier to pray from there. But nevertheless, what is it that people need to pray for? So if we could explain to them the thing about Binyan HaMalchus, to create that field in the way in which people were saying, like, if you build it, they will come, you know? If you create that field, then you ask, and what does that field mean for me in my life? Well, the first thing is, if somebody says, remember when Heschel is saying we lived more in time than we live in space, right? As Jews, we live more in time than we live in space. What does it mean? For instance, in the beginning we used to say, where will you bring your korbanot? B'makom asher yivcha Hashem l'shaken shmo sham. And then it says, no. The pasuk doesn't want to come right now. It says something about you'll come to that place in Yerushalayim. After the destruction of the temple is we have moved into time, and then they say these are the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and the pasuk is on tip of my tongue and doesn't want to come right now. Okay. And now the issue is very much an issue of time. So if somebody says, I am a Jewish renewal person, I'd like to be able to say, how many minutes of the year have you been doing Jewish renewal? You get this, you know, if somebody says, I ask you, how old are you? And then I say, spiritually, how old are you? And if I were to ask, tell me about how much time do you spend in the spiritual space, you know? Maybe some of us are 1 year old, and that's already big, you know? So the question is, how much spiritual time, if you want to say the time should be renewed for us on Rosh Hashanah, to make it really strong, that I will spend so and so much time to charge up the God field in the world. That's what Binyan HaMalchut is about. And we'll do it with our family in this way, you know? You make Kiddush Friday night, and you sing Zmiris at the table, and you do Birchat HaMazon, then you can say, this is the time we charge the God field with Shabbos, you know? In the morning when you daven, you charge the God field with Talis and Tefillin and with Shachris. And this is what, if we say, where is God? As the Kotzke said, wherever he's let in, you know? And if we were to ask the question, how much investment have we got? You know, if I want to withdraw some God energy from the bank in Refuah, in Mazel, in Parnasse, in Shalom Bayis, and whatever I need it for, the teller will say, how much did you invest? Okay. So if we do it b'shem Kol Yisrael, that's why we say l'shem Yichud Kudshe B'Yach Shchim D'Liach b'shem Kol Yisrael. At least I go to the general account, you know, and I draw from there. But that's an important thing to make people aware that we have a general account. Once, and now comes the last part that I wanted to get to. I asked a friend of mine in Australia to arrange, when we get there, an opportunity to talk with some of the people who would be the theologians and concerned scientists and so on and so forth. Because I feel that there has to be a conversion for all of us. Whatever religion we have, when we say that this religion is the highest that there can be, and it's not subsumed under the health of the planet, then we make solace. I remember that I used to think, if there would be a time, Chalila v'chas, if I had the choice that the world should exist without Judaism or cease to exist, what would I do? I was very much on the side in those days, so let there not be a world, you know? Amzu yatzarta li lati yesaperu, if we're not here, im lo beriti, chukat shamayim v'aretz lo samti, never mind, it doesn't pay to have a world if we aren't there, okay? In a post-triumphalist and post-paradigm shift situation, I would want to say everybody has to be converted to the Gaian religion, if you will. In the Gaian religion, you can be, a member of one of the vital organs of the planet, and you have to make that a healthy vital organ. But if you cannot go to that place, so when I'm saying that the issue of Binyan HaMalchut is to invest in the health of the planet. That's the optimal issue, the top issue of Binyan HaMalchut, okay? All right, At Kan. Okay, now let's learn a little bit from the text here, and maybe we'll do more with Bruchim to you. Achat sha'alti me'et Hashem.
Where is it from?
Where is that from? That's taken from Reb Netanel Zalman from Likutei Torah. Okay? Achat sha'alti me'et Hashem, v'huva b'yalkut. Amar Kodesh Baruch leDavid, בתחילה אתה אומר אחת שאלתי, שבתי בית השם, ואחר כך אתה שואל כמה שאלות, לחזות בדבריו השם או לבקר בהיכלו. Okay? So, the Yalkut has God having a dialogue with David HaMelech and saying, hey, come on, you ordered one thing, I'll give you the one thing, Achat Sha'alti. Why do you come and lay on some extra things that you want, okay? Vehishiva David, Mimcha lamadeti. I learned this from you, בתחילה לא באת אליי אלא באחת, שנאמר בת ישראל מה שם לקרא שואל מעמך. First you said, I'm not nudging you, I'm not giving you 613 mitzvahs. All I'm saying is one mitzvah, that mash ki'im liyira. ואחר כך, פתחת עלינו במצוות הרבה שנאמר ללכת בכל דרכיו ולדווקא בו וגומר. It's a wonderful dialogue that comes out of the Yalkut. Ve'amar harav ha'magid zal nishma seiden. That is the Magid of Mezrich, is the teacher of Reb Netanel Zalman. And he is saying, Hatam shebe'emet sha'al rak davar echad levad. In truth, he only asked for one thing. Rak u'memele ba'im im zeh shar hadvarim. And with that come all the other things. You remember there's another teacher from the Galilee, from Nazareth, who said, seek ye first the Malchut Shamayim, and all the other things will be added onto you. And you see how this works itself out with Binyan HaMalchut. וצריך ביור לדבריו, שלזה לא היה צריך דוד ללמוד מהשם, שהרי באמת לא שאל רק שאלה אחת. After all, it was really only one thing that he asked for, which contains that. So what's this whole thing? אך העניין הוא ידוע, יוד ירא, ה' אבא, ו' תורה, ה' מצוות. If you look at the divine name, you get Yud, Yira. What's Yira? Reshit Chochma Yirat Hashem. Yud is in Chochma, right? It's the parts of Abba, it's Chochma. So, Yud Yira. Hey Ahava, and that comes from Bina Ahava, I understand, I love, I understand. And then Vav is Torah, it comes from above and goes down like the Vav letter. And Hey is mitzvahs, it goes into all directions to do the mitzvahs. Isn't that nice, the way in which he has that? If someone says, I want to have only Ahava, then he has the Hove, but he doesn't have the Yud Hove. Okay? All right. So, והיותר למעלה, יותר עניין אחדות, וירא עליונה הוא למעלה מן התורה. If you go to the place, what like the top, a spire, on the bottom it's very broad. On top is only one. That's like how I like to talk about the word universe, you know? There's the pole of the uni and there's the one of the diverse. So verse is in mitzvahs and uni is in yira. Okay? ויצווינו השם לעשות כל החוקים האלה ליראת השם אלוקינו. So you get from that all the details of the mitzvahs are for the sake of bringing us to yira. Now let's get back to that word yira. I think we've gone over that, but it bears doing it again. Pachad is pochad. There is a danger, it's a terror, you know, I have this fear that comes from fearing a very specific object. It's an objective fear. Ema, ayema, is anxiety. I don't know what I'm afraid of, but I'm afraid. You know, I have this anxiety. The description of Ema is when Avram Avinu is doing the Brit Bein HaBetarim, and it says, Ema Hashecha nofelet alav. A dark Ema fell on him. Sort of a high anxiety. But Yira is related to the word ro'eh, to see. To see is to inspect, and Yira is respect. It has something I begin to see that I'm seen. And so the model I like to give is if you are in a room and you don't think there's anybody else there, let's say you're passing a wind and you're making a noise, and all of a sudden you realize there was a person there. And it gives you such a zetz in the kishkis, you know, to recognize you have been seen, you have been heard, you know. That thing that you thought that you had your privacy, you were not being seen, and you were being seen. And that Sufi tale, I think I told you about the master who sends his disciples to bring live birds, right? And then one of them comes and he tells him, you have to go to a place where no one can see you and kill the birds. And 19 of the disciples come back with the dead birds, and the 20th, who is the one to whom the teacher gave all the attention, came back and says, I couldn't find a place where no one could see me. So that sense of yira is there this way. Says all these things is to bring us leyirat Hashem Elokeinu. Harei kol shmirat hamitzvos enam rak lehadgia lemadregat hayira hi, vehi yirat haromemut. What kind of a yira is that? It's not that I'm worried about getting punished or something like this, but I'm in such awe that and not everybody can get to this yira. Now there's an ava elyona shelamala miyira zuhi ava rabba she'ena bo me'avodas ha'adam v'yigia toki'im hashpoa elyona kasher yigia ha'adam el ha'yira elyona memele tavo elav ha'ava azot hamufleget v'hi kalot ha'nefesh l'shorsha v'hi ava v'tanugim lamala miyira. A lot of stuff here.
Sounds like a cook.
As long as the ego, my ego is in my center, and I have not set it aside, then all I can get is yirat ha'onesh. You know, I can only feel that what am I afraid of? I'm afraid of that my ego is going to be killed. When you have a sense, I'm stepping over this boundary, and once I step over this boundary, my ego isn't going to be there anymore. And the fear that grabs us at that point is very great, but that's not what he's talking about, the yirat haromemut. The yirat haromemut comes only after you have had a chance to give up that fear. When you get to yirat haromemut, there's a sense of such liberation, of such a joy that says, I'm a chelek elokah, and I so am glad that I am one with God. that this is the ecstasy that I'm in. And he says that's the Ahava Rabbah, it's the great love. Yeah. And this Yira, this Ahava Hanal, hein kun trein rein de lo misparshin. Ki hayota lemalo be'achtet yoter. Everything that is below is in differentiation. But the higher you get, you can't tell anymore whether this is Yira or Ava that you're experiencing, because in this unified state, in this unitive state, when they talk about going through the dark night of the soul, the dark night of the senses, and this all has to do with getting to the place past the ego. מה שאין כן למטה הוא עולם הפירוט הירא והאהבה והם כמעט שני הפוכים. When you come down lower levels, then yira and ava are opposites of each other. But on that level, they're not. Now, how do we start with yira? והירא צריך שיגיע האדם מתחילה להשפיל את עצמו במדרגת השפלות, עד מאוד, ומזה יעבור לירא התחתונה.
ויחו שניהם יחדיו.
I was talking before about how to become a Gaian citizen, if you will. And it's very hard to get people to agree that we are not the top of the chain of life. We always arrogate ourselves that we understand things, that we know things. We are the top of that. Now, if there's someone who is higher than we are, and we don't experience that anymore because we don't have kings with the power of life and death over us, But could you imagine if you were to come to a king who has the power of life and death over you, then you become annihilated. And if you look sometimes how people used to come before kings, they used to bow down. In China, they used to beat their head against the ground to show how they are nothing, and you get the sense of the kida and hishtachva, v'anachnu korim mishtachavim u'modim, and so on and so forth, all of which is that yira tachtona, to say, I am not the boss of the universe, I'm not the highest that there is, I accept you, okay? Ve'ava shelamala mimenu, then there's a love that is above that yira, simcha yismar Yisrael be'osav. V'zois ha'ava hi lemata miyira ha'elyona. Now, remember he has just said that there is a thing in mitzvahs, and you begin with that yira that gets you to do the mitzvahs. And then comes Torah, and from the Torah you get to that ava that's there. So he's saying, what kind of ava is it? Yismach Yisrael be'osav. I remember hearing someone saying, wow, God is so together, out of sight, far out. I mean, there's a 70 language, right? But the understanding how this is, and there's a feeling of love that comes from that. And that can't come until after we have had that sense of the Yira Tachtona. Then you get to that Ava, and that's higher. But then the other Ava is the one that you have to get to the Yira Elyona, which is bottled b'metzius, that you no longer have any existence. V'zeu ma Hashem Elokecha shoel me'imcha ki im le'yira, meaning the Yira Elyona. Ma Hashem Elokecha shoel me'imcha. Ma. What? When you want to say what, there's nothing there at this point. So it's a yira that comes from the God wants us to do ma. Okay? Right. In Zen, there is a certain practice where they use a syllable mu, which is another way of saying ich bin gar nicht, It's beyond me. It's beyond me. It's not my ego. וממילא בא אל ההווה עליון הנ"ל, כי דרכו של איש לחזור אחר אישו, when after you've gotten to that yira, then you want to get to that isha, which is the love, ki kula chad lamala kemavua belikute amorim, period. So I just wanted to learn with us that shtickle. Any questions that come up for you about anything that we have done today?
No?
8 million. We have to go with this a few times.
Or anything else you want to say?
Can you say more about the waking up from the Tardema and put that in the the context of talking about Yira and Bina and
I'm going to say this first of all in Kabbalese, okay? We're talking about waking up from that sleep. So in the Kabbalah, they talk about this as being, here's Malchut. And Malchut is what comes after Chesed, Gvur, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. But when Malchut wakes up, it doesn't wake up anymore to Tiferet. It wakes up to Keter. Okay, that's the kind of thing that gives the opportunity for Malchut to create a field for itself. It's almost like saying that as long, give you a social example. You're going to be sitting with a group of women, and you'll teach something, and you'll want them to get into conversation. And there'll be one man there, and he's going to be monopolizing the conversation. And it's very seldom that you're going to find that the women will be free to talk. So you have to remove him, as it were, And so it is that the other midas, Chesed, Gvur, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, are seen as masculine, Legabe, the feminine of Malchut. And the waking up into her own power doesn't come as long as she's dependent on that. So that's what they're saying is that on Rosh Hashanah, Pnimiut HaMalchut is Ole ad Malchut de Ein Sof. Okay?
like the universe unfolding back on itself.
That's right, like an Ouroboros, yeah. It recognizes that it has gotten the job to go and be in that place, So I don't mind being down there as long as I understand that over there, that's my real place. So that's Eshet Chayil Ateret Bala. That she becomes Keter in this, and it's not just below. Translated into the other way, it comes out like saying that when you say Ma Shem Elokecha Shoel Me'imcha, what does God want from us? He's got the perfection of all perfections, and what does God need from us? So one interpretation, I like that interpretation a lot, goes like this. Hakol bidei shamayim, chutz mirat shamayim. God has everything except the fear of heaven, right? So God has no God. Whom should God fear? So how would God ever get to have some yirat shamayim? Through us, getting into our kishkes and feeling what that's like. Oh, so that's what yirat shamayim is like, okay? So in the perfection of God, what God needs is for us to have yirat shamayim to fulfill Him. Now, if you get a sense of how this works, then you have the sense of Eshet Chayil Ateret Bala. If you look at, in a really loving situation, when the male has his orgasm, it's like saying, I'm so grateful to you. what you have done for me. So she is, in Yiddish it would call a woman mein Kroin. I don't know if you ever heard that way of saying, and this is, you've crowned me, as it were. And that's Isha Tesovev Gever, and you have all the Zer Zahav and so on and so forth around, okay? Yeah. Anything else?
Could you explain some more about why we need the Shekhinah to have time? What the significance of that is?
Well, because if you go to Ein Sof, look, when I say Hashem Melech, yeah? When I say Adon Olam Asher Malach B'Terem Kol Yitzir Nivra, V'achei Kichlos HaKol Levado Yimlech Nora, but Hashem Melech is from the beginning of anything to the end of everything, and that is the divine present. That present is eternity. And in that eternity there is no time. Time begins when Shechina is available.
I see.
Okay?
In other words, to make it comprehensible to us.
Not only to make it experienceable to us. There's no room for us. The same way as you speak about, there has to be tzimtzum.
Yeah. So this is like a tzimtzum in time.
In time. This is where Professor Heschel is so wonderful and is saying that Shabbos is where time connects to eternity. But the necessity is also there should be time. So when you look at Yom Kippur and you say the 26 hours of Yom Kippur, Ki Bayom Hazeh Yechaper Aleichem, you go into that day, God becomes day for 26 hours, Yud Hey Vav Hey, etc., and so he becomes incarnate in time. And that creates the possibility of time for us. Okay, so that's where Shechina comes in there.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's that posik? It just came to me in a moment. Dirshu Hashem behimatzo. That was the posik I was looking for. Seek God where God can be found. So they first said that's in Yerushalayim. That's why we still turn to Yerushalayim when we daven. And then they said those are the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur because God is now in time. Okay? And when you go from Olam, Shana to Nefesh, then you have to speak about how God is now not just in time, but also in Nefesh. And so we find it in reflecting on who we are and what's happening in us.
So this time is the time of the Yichud?
Pardon?
So this time is the time of Yichud?
This is what that's how we begin. Ani ledodi, vedodi li. It's coming together. That's why I feel it's so sad that people come in without any preparation.
Right.
And all of a sudden they have to do the great thing, And it's like, someone introduces me to a woman and I say, come, let's go to bed. Who are you? I haven't met you yet, Let's go and have some time together. So Anila Dodi Vedodi Li is bringing us up every day to blow the shofar, Achat Sha'alti Meit Hashem, and so on and so forth. We court, and then we have slichas, and it gets more intensive, And after the slichas, it goes into still a higher level of things. So that's what's involved here. So it's a pity that we go directly into a situation where without any hachonis. And I think
So maybe we should start services with a mini Elul somehow.
well that's what
Instant Elul.
that's what slichas is supposed to do.
Yeah, but people don't even know about Slichas. They just show up Erev Rosh Hashanah in Shul. Yeah?
Well, next week in Mirz Hashem, when we come, we're gonna do Hatarat Nedarim. We're all gonna go and do being Mater Neder, so that we can do that part and be prepared for Rosh Hashanah in that way. But all these, if you look at the number of hachanot that we have to make, that's really great. We've been blowing the shofar since the beginning of Elul. Okay, who's gonna blow? I'm gonna trust you to give a good blow. Hayom Harat Olam. Okay, see you Sunday night in Yetz Hashem at the Quakers.
What time?
7, huh?
Yeah, 7.
And what is this about?
Pardon?
What is this about?
Oh, it's about tshuva, a talk that I have to give there.
Would you mind if I film it?
Oh, come, l'chaim l'shalom to it. Bring the thing. Yeah, sure.
Rabbi Zalman, I just noticed something today. It's not quite related to the whole idea of teshuva, but when you talked about the angel, the angel having a person, a malach having a purpose, and then the purpose is done.
Yeah.
So I was reflecting upon when Jacob struggled with the ish. A lot of people translate that as angel, but it's really ish.
Yeah.
And so maybe the reason it's not malach, like I always wonder why it's not malach in the Torah, it's really ish. So maybe the ish, the purpose isn't done. Maybe there's something more.
Well, I tell you, he has to go also sing a song for God. Remember, he's saying, send me forth, because the morning star has risen.
Right.
So if you look at Rashi, you'll see Rashi tells us that because the morning star has risen, the angel says, it's my job to sing Shira today. So the question arises, Dafke, today when you had to do this job and wrestle with Jacob, you have to go and sing Shira? So the answer is, all the time when he was an angel, he didn't have anything to sing about. But now he came back and says, "Oh, Rebbeinu Shalom, I'm going to sing you this song. You created human beings, and there's this Yaakov Avinu. And he struggled, and all his life he was the underdog, and I couldn't make him be the underdog. Does that give you nachas?" And God says, yes. That's a beautiful song to sing to God. Okay? That's an interpretation for this. Okay, Chavre.
Okay.
I was thinking
Good
of
Shabbos, good
the
Shabbos.
pasuk connecting it to Rosh Hashanah, when you talked about Yira and Ahava becoming one in the higher levels. That's Vayelchu shnehem.
Pardon?
Vayelchu shnehem yachdav.
That's right.
The
That's
second
right.
time,
That's right.
is where they're unified.
Sure.